Thank you. Thank you so much. About myself, I will say that I care about how I look. I care about the clothes that I wear. I care about the message that they send. And I try to anticipate situations and be prepared for them as well as I can be. So that's a little bit about me. My family figures in this story because it is a family story. My mother, let's go back 12 years because that was when this happened. My mother at that time was in her late 60s and living in a house that she built to retire in Bethany Beach, Delaware. And I won't say that she cares as much about, well, I shouldn't say that. She cares about her appearance, but she's always making excuses for it. That there's not so much she can do until she loses some weight and gets a new wardrobe, and it's that old story. Yet every closet in her house, which is a pretty large house, is filled with clothes. So when I go to see her, I have no place to put anything. I just am spreading out clothes on a bed or whatever. My sister and brother-in-law are both in academia, not unlike me, and they also care about appearance, and they're very, very preppy. Then there's my father. My father had been very ill with Alzheimer's disease. Again, we're going back 12 years. He'd been in a nursing home for about 8 years, and I don't know how many of you in this room have experienced this with a loved one, but it is devastating. It's simply devastating. And at the time that he was diagnosed, which had been about 8 years before that, the doctor said to my mother, and I was standing there, resign yourself to having this tear your family apart, to financial ruin, and eventually your husband will lose his soul. And I thought, it could possibly tear the family apart. It could cause financial ruin, but lose his soul. So my sister and I would take the family dog to visit Dad at Christmas time because the nursing home welcomed pets during the holiday season, and our wire-haired terrier we'd open the door to the nursing home. She would run through the halls to Dad. Somehow she knew where he was, leap into his lap, and there was this happy reunion, even though he hadn't a clue who she was. And this one Christmas, 3 years before this particular event, the dog didn't know who he was. We tried to put her in his lap, and she'd just leap off, and she looked at him as though, who is this? And I turned to my sister and I said, he lost his soul. So from that point forward, we had a whole series of crises. Dad was going, Mother would call, get ready, the time has come, get ready, get ready, get ready. Well, it didn't come until this one fateful day when she called, and she's getting into her whole story about it, and, okay, I know, get ready. She said, no, it's happened. So we're gathering. We have to bury him. And he was in Washington, and he was being taken to Evansburg, Pennsylvania, where there was a family burial plot. Again, why Evansburg? I haven't a clue, but I'm not going there. So I gathered my things together as well as I could, and with no notice at all, and headed to Wilmington via Amtrak, where I was met by my mother. We drove to Pottstown, where we stayed overnight with my sister and brother-in-law and their kids. And owing to the fact that my sister and brother-in-law packed like they're leaving Romanov, Russia, and never returning, we couldn't travel in one vehicle. It was impossible. So the next morning, they take off in one car, and Mother and I are in another. And it was a long trip. It was winter, so it was sleety and icy and not very pleasant. And it was getting dark early, and we drove for about 6 hours, and it was a Sunday, just to give you a day, so it's kind of a soulful day. And we're about 30 minutes from Evansburg, and I realize that I had left my funeral suit in the closet in the guest room at my sister's. And I'm wearing a pair of khaki pants and a pink Oxford cloth shirt. Remember, this was 12 years ago. I've evolved. And I just broke out in this hot, panicky sweat of what am I going to do? Nothing's open. I can't be pallbearing tomorrow morning in khakis and a pink Oxford cloth shirt. And I'm thinking, well, my niece is really crafty, and maybe if we gave her a couple of Sharpies, she could fix the khakis. But what's she going to do about the pink shirt? And it went from, and then of course I transferred this panic to my mother, who then went into her whole mother thing. This is when you feel completely infantilized about, you idiot, how could you have done this? Well, what happened? So I thought, I'll drop Mother off at the motel. I'll drive back to Pottstown, 6 hours, get the suit, and come back. But you know what the thing, I was just self-flagellating because there was no reason to have taken that suit out of the trunk of the car. It could have stayed in the garment bag. It didn't have to go in. But I'm thinking, oh no, it needs to have a nice vertical hang overnight. Don't ever say that to yourselves. Leave it where it's nice and safe and you won't forget it. So, we have the Beverly Hillbilly truck driving behind us with all the luggage strapped to the outside of the car. Not really, but metaphorically it works. And I say to myself, you know something? My brother-in-law Jay probably has about 25 suits with him. And while we're not the same size, I will make it work. And in fact, he was traveling with no fewer than 4 suits. So not only was there a suit for me to wear, there could be a fashion show. I mean, it was simply remarkable. And a white shirt and a dark tie, and I was all set. So I said to my mother, I will never, ever, ever say anything about the fact that they overpacked so badly. They were forgiven forever, at least from me, because they bailed me out of this tremendously difficult situation. And they still continue to overpack. They do, but I always know that there's something in that wardrobe for me should there be some critical emergency. So I thank all of you. I'm so thrilled and honored to have been here, and I thank all of you. Thank you.